And you said to me, hey, how are you feeling about the birth? And I said something along the lines of, oh, I'm just hoping that I don't go into labor too soon, or I'm hoping that I had all what I didn't want. And it was such a simple thing. You just said, I just want you to think about how you do want it to go. Just focus on how you want it to go and just do that. And I was like, okay, she's never led me astray before. I'll just do that. So I started visualizing and imagining, which all a part of mind change, right? And I just started doing that. And then my birth went exactly that way. And I was like, she did it again. This is unbelievable.
Welcome back to the Mind Change Podcast. I'm Heather McKean, your host. And before we get started, please take a minute to like, subscribe, download, do all those wonderful things that help us reach others just like you so that we can continue to create free content. With us today, I'm really excited about is not only one of our wonderful practitioners, but someone who I consider probably just one of my best friends in this whole wide world, Cara Ugolini. So welcome.
Thank you.
It's bestest so great friend.
I know, this is so exciting.
Yeah. So, I mean, listen, everybody who's on a podcast could have all their best friends on, and that would be great. But not only are you just one of my best friends, but you are a rock star.
Well, thank you.
You're a mind change rock star.
I'll take it. I'll take that tag.
Yeah. And you were, I think, our first practitioners.
Yeah.
Your journey has been a long one. I've talked about this before, but you were right there on the sidelines watching all my mess.
Yep.
And then when I got well, you were like, hey, so that little problem of insomnia I've been having for all this time, do you think it could work for this?
Right.
So maybe I could start out by telling just what was your perspective of maybe my journey?
Sure.
I'm not sure if we've talked about that before, but
okay,
in case.
I've told it to a lot of people that, how did you get into this? And I always say, I witnessed your transformation, and it was so radical. I mean, I just remember going with you to doctor's appointments, just trying to figure out what was wrong. And just trying to be a friend during that time, and just really feeling for you, like, man, this seems like the unsolvable mystery of illnesses, and I just loved you so much and just wanted to see you do great. And I remember the last time I saw you before, like, the miracle story, you had trouble even walking to meet me, and it was just painful for you to sit. I think we met at the mall and just talk, and you were just in so much pain. And you were like, I'm going to go to this conference, and I'm just really hoping that it helps. And, I just remember really hoping that too. And then I think I saw you 2 or 3 months later at a conference or something, and you were just like bright and shining and walking straight and big smile. And I just, was like, what happened? Tell me what happened. And I was a bit in disbelief. And had I not known you so well, I would have thought, this person has lost her mind. Well, this is not a thing that people experience. So I was just totally intrigued and had to know what did you do? How did that happen? And then, of course, as you started to share, this little thing in the back of my mind, like, I wonder if it could help for me, because at that point I was on such a journey trying to figure out how to get well and how to just heal this insomnia, tried to figure out what was causing it, just felt so lost in all of that. So there was this just little flicker of light and hope seeing what you had experienced. So
for those of you who don't know your story, you were suffering with crippling insomnia. I think one of the worst cases I have worked with and can remember. So maybe, I know it's kind of an old story for you at this point, but if you can just explain back, what was that like? What was that like for you? What was your day-to-day life like? How did it change?
Yeah, it's funny talking about it because not only is it hard to remember because it's changed so much, But also that period of time, there's like 5 years or so that's like a black hole in my mind. Like the memories just are not there. And I think that was in part due to all the lack of sleep. But I do remember just the struggle, just really desperately wanting to sleep, being so incredibly tired. But then most nights it wouldn't be until around 5 a.m. that I would doze off, more pass out. I don't know what it was, falling asleep or passing out. And so on average, just getting about 2 hours a night and barely able to just do the basic things. Like I remember brushing my teeth felt like a chore. It was everything that I did, I had to count the cost of. Like, do I really need to put makeup on? I mean, I looked, pretty put together most of the time, I guess. But during that period of time, I just was not myself. I had no color in my face. And, people would always ask me, are you okay? And so those are some of the things that stand out, just how difficult life felt. And it was often like, man, I have everything that I ever wanted. I had, these 2 great kids, great husband, the job that I wanted. And I felt like I couldn't enjoy it. Like it was just somewhere over some wall that I couldn't get past. And there just didn't seem to be a cause. Or I remember going to get a brain scan because I thought maybe the good news will be that I have a tumor that's like preventing me from sleeping. Not that that would be good, but that there could be a reason for it, because it just felt so unsolvable, like an unsolvable mystery again. Yeah.
I'm actually, I have to say this because I'm just struck just now with how wonderful it is that our friendship has lasted, because we lived in adjacent states. So we didn't even live in the same state.
Right.
We lived in adjacent states, but we would make time to see each other, I'd say at least every couple months, right? We'd meet up and see each other. And we were meeting up during both of us struggling with these horrific conditions. And in one sense, I think comforting each other through all of this and how difficult it was. And a lot of friendships don't make it past if one gets well. Right? Like if one person gets well and the other one doesn't, luckily we both have gotten well, and our friendship has probably even gotten stronger over the years. So that's just...
That is cool.
I met with that just for a second, like, oh, I'm so grateful. So let's talk back about the insomnia. Do you feel like it was just a sudden onset? Had you always been quote unquote a bad sleeper? Like where did you track back to that kind of beginning?
So I was never like an easy sleeper. Some people could just fall asleep, but it was never a problem. I didn't notice it as a problem until after my second was born, and she was eventually sleeping through the night and I wasn't. I'm like, well, I can't even blame this on her anymore because she's asleep. And I think it was just my coping strategies that I had used up to that point just weren't enough anymore. With 2 kids, I think it's exponentially harder going from 1 to 2. And just the underlying layers of anxiety that had been present my whole life, probably always there. My coping strategies just failed at that point. And I do think it was, now I look back and I see it as this beautiful way that my body was trying to get my attention. Because we're not meant to just cope with our lives. We're supposed to actually enjoy them. And so now when I look back at it, I'm actually grateful that happened. Because it wasn't like I was fabulously happy and peaceful before that. So I think it was just a signal from my body letting me know, hey, there's some stuff here. What I didn't realize when you worked with me that first day, that there was a memory attached to when the insomnia really started to flare up. I had no idea that there was any connection to that. And so just digging into that and then resolving that, I think that was really the beginning of my journey, because I thought if I can go in and find a connection like that and make peace with it and have something this big change, what else? What else could I do? What other experiences are holding this incredible ability to heal and transform? So it wasn't like that one session, because people always ask me that, like, how is it that one session changed everything for you? It wasn't like that one session healed everything, but it was the catalyst. It just helped me to go, oh my gosh, like what else could I do? What else is wanting to be addressed? And so then it just was that starting point that launched me into just more and more and more.
So I remember, and this is interesting with something you just said, I remember doing that, working together, and it coming to, and remember, we just follow subconscious trails, and it coming to a conflict with a coworker and something that had happened, and you were like, there's no way this could be it. You would have been happy for it to be a brain tumor.
Yeah, that would have been easier.
It was like the brain tumor. That would have made sense.
Yeah.
But when we really tracked it back to this one particular conflict, now it doesn't mean that the whole insomnia thing was based on this one conflict, but it was a trigger. It was almost like that proverbial straw, right? On a lot of different programs and stuff.
Right.
And that was encapsulating or holding metaphorically all these other stories.
It sure was.
So when that really came in and there wasn't resolution for that, that's when the insomnia just decided to take over completely, right?
Absolutely.
But I remember the shock that you had, and frankly, me too, because this is not when I was like working with people. I had just fresh come off my own, first initial catalyst moments.
I remember you with all your papers. You had all these notes, and you were just like, asking me questions.
Just like, what could this be, right? Yeah. So very clunky, very clunky. But we landed on that and changed it. And if I remember correctly, this was so long ago, right? How long ago has it been? 13 years?
Think about, at least 10, 11, 12, I don't know.
Something like that.
A lifetime ago.
That we worked on it. You went home and slept. Like a baby is what I remember you said, which was just
medication-free.
Medication-free, shocking. But also I remember that week, because I believe you called me again, you're like, not going to believe this, because something happened with that particular coworker where there was real life resolution. Like we had done resolution in your mind, but there was, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, she called you and was needing some help with something. And because you had worked through this space, you were able to offer her with, from some help and some stuff. And it was a shift in your entire relationship.
Totally. And a shift in other relationships that were like it. Because I thought, like what was going on behind these interactions had so much more to do with me. And I can actually change that inside of me, and therefore changing these relationships. Like the relationship now doesn't have pressure to be anything because I'm okay. So that was huge with just that one.
What do you feel like for you was the core belief you were working on that relationship triggered and that was in other relationships? I think that was maybe also probably supporting the anxiety to some degree. I know you've worked on so many core beliefs at this point, but do you recognize one that was really... Oh,
definitely. Yeah, I'm responsible, right? I'm responsible for everything, everyone. I'm at fault. And it was, that was present in any coworker relationship. But it certainly later was able to trace that back to childhood, which I knew that logically. I'd been in counseling. I knew about triangulation, when a child becomes the focal point. I knew that logically. I just didn't know how to change it, because knowing it here doesn't necessarily change it. I'm just aware that I do that. So it really came up strong in that coworker relationship. But the reason that coworker triggered all of that goes back to childhood stuff.
Would you say, based on that core belief and that program of triangulation, that you found yourself in a lot of those same circumstances?
Oh, absolutely.
Like it was almost like you were a triangulation magnet?
Yes.
Well, my whole missing piece and you kept filling it for other people?
Absolutely. I think it was why I ended up in the career that I was in a helping profession. I think that's why we do that. We feel compelled. I think up until that point, I was running on compulsion. I have to. Like I always felt like this need to jump in to solve a problem. And then, of course, anyone that thinks they need someone to fix them is totally drawn to me because I'm right there for it.
And then you were the problem so often, right? You ended up fixing by absorbing and taking responsibility for the program.
Yes. And that whole thing like, I can just feel what others feel. what I realized was actually, no, I'm just feeling me in it. And I'm just compiling suffering on myself that is not actually meant for me. So yeah, unlocking that. And that took a little bit more time, right? Realizing those programs, like taking on the suffering of others, which I thought was what I'm supposed to do. And there's faith programs behind that. I'm supposed to take that on. I'm supposed to, I'm good at what I do because I feel others' pain. But I'm just over here suffering and burning out, which then I'm actually not really helping anyone because I'm taking myself out as I'm doing that. So undoing all of that has been an incredibly freeing journey for me.
And you did almost take yourself out, legit.
Many times.
Because you got to the point where you guys were thinking of shifting jobs because of, in one sense, that had become a disability, right?
Absolutely.
You were not functional.
Yeah.
Not only were you not functional in your job at that point, but then probably having a difficult time, I would guess, functioning as a mother and as a spouse. And that was, I'm assuming that was the case.
Yeah, the story I tell people, if you ever want to know how bad it was, I laugh about it now. Of course, that when I think about it, I just have compassion for myself. But I was at a church service, and I was frantically looking for one of my kids, or my youngest, who I think was maybe 9 months old at the time. I couldn't find her. She wasn't in the kids' class. So I'm looking, and I'm asking people, have you seen my daughter? Have you seen my daughter? And no one is really responding. They're kind of giving me funny looks. And I'm like, why is no one paying attention to me? I'm like missing my kid. And then a friend, I guess, noticed what was happening, and she stopped me and she said, Cara, you're holding her.
Oh,
you realize you're holding her, right? And I was like, oh, oh my gosh. Like, you do that sometimes with your phone or your sunglasses, but with your kid. So yes, I was not functioning at full capacity.
5 years of not sleeping?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that'll do it to you.
Yes.
I think people don't understand how debilitating insomnia can be because of it is legitimately a lack of sleep. You're going crazy.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, because your mind isn't being fed with the proper nutrition, sleep nutrition, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and having that belief that I'm responsible.
Oh gosh.
And then having a second kid. So how it started with, oh gosh, how am I going to do my job with a second child this way? And so I would pack the bag that I was going to use the next day, put it by the door. I had a schedule with, 15-minute increments when I was going to feed her, when I would shower, as if that's how humans operate, and as if that's how babies do life. Like, I'm sure they're going to follow your nice color-coded schedule. But because I just had to get on top of myself because I was responsible for everything. And so then when it's time to sleep, I'm thinking about all the things that I have to do or I have to, figure out how to do. So
yeah, that's one of the main drivers behind insomnia is being stuck in your head, right?
Yep.
And thinking through situations. It's the resistance of the conscious mind to release and let go for the subconscious mind to do its work.
Right.
Because the conscious mind is trying to hold on and control that feeling of lack of control of giving over to the subconscious mind, which is what actually controls us, really, 95% of what we do and who we are. That what the conscious mind is doing is a death grip on their role, right? Their time in the spotlight, if you will. But it's really the subconscious mind that allows us to do all the filtering and filing and processing. Yeah. So, wow.
And I'm so powerful that I was able to fight it. I mean, so my subconscious and conscious mind were not in agreement. And I'm really stubborn. So it was a battle. And even all the medication and things I was on, my mind would fight even the medication. So it wouldn't even work, because I was fighting it so hard.
Yeah. Only now can you look back and call that power.
Yeah. Yeah. Really powerful.
We were really powerful.
Yeah.
So we did the proverbial one session and then you went and slept like a baby. But we all know, and the story is, that was just the beginning for you. But again, contextually, you, not long after that, I moved or was going to be moving. Then you moved to Scotland. We moved to South Africa. And then there was really no talk of mind change. It's not like you were, well, we didn't have courses and stuff at the time. Gosh,
Yeah.
we didn't have the book at the time.
Mm-mm.
Nothing. There was nothing. Mind Change didn't exist.
Right.
It was in its infancy with my own journey and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So we stayed friends and we stayed in contact in that way, but there was very little engagement with Mind Change. So it's not like you were doing it this whole time. So what got you back involved?
Sure. Well, we didn't call it Mind Change then, but I was doing a lot of just learning whatever I could, even from that time. And you would like, I think of almost like breadcrumbs. Like you would just like throw me a breadcrumb, like, oh, you should do NLP, do a course. I was like, okay. So just learning all this stuff that you would sort of let me know about over the years. And I was fascinated by these things. And I think you and I would often share books.
Yeah.
Like, oh, this book, that book. And as soon as you recommend a book, I'm on Amazon and
Vice versa.
yes. So just learning whatever I could. But then so shortly after our work together in that one session, the biggest thing that I one of my main goals was I wanted to be able to sleep so I could have a third child.
That's right.
That was like a huge driver. I was like, I can't do this again if I can't sleep. And my husband won't let me. So I need to really figure this out.
That's right. You wanted another child, but the insomnia was actually keeping you from having another child.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I got pregnant and you came to my baby shower.
That's right.
And you said to me, hey, how are you feeling about the birth? And I said something along the lines of, oh, I'm just hoping that I don't go into labor too soon, or I'm hoping that I had all what I didn't want. And it was such a simple thing. You just said, I just want you to think about how you do want it to go. Just focus on how you want it to go and just do that. And I was like, okay, she's never led me astray before. I'll just do that. So I started visualizing and imagining, which all a part of Mind Change, right? And I just started doing that. And then my birth went exactly that way. And I was like, she did it again. This is unbelievable. And obviously it's our minds and our bodies are so powerful. So I had little assurances all along the way. And then making the decision to go abroad with an infant, like I was sleeping so well with a newborn. It was crazy. Like no one is that rested. And she was the easiest baby. And I think it had a lot to do with how regulated I was and how much, that helped. But it was so easy that we decided we could move abroad. Let's do it. And then little fears would pop up, different things I had to work on. And it was the tools, just the little bit that I had learned from you where it was able to help me overcome some of those things. So we made it over there. And it was tough over there, just living abroad in a new country and having a, young family. And there were things that were coming up with work that were hard. And I just milked what I knew about how to change an experience, how to connect it to something. How do I know this bothers me? So it got me through some really tough times over there. And then the people that knew me the best, I was sharing about that with them. And then all of a sudden I started having people ask me, kind of like I did with you, can you help me with this? Would it help with this? And so I just started practicing on people, whoever would let me at them. And it was amazing to see with the little that I knew, what we could do and accomplish in a short period of time.
That's when we started communicating even a little bit more specifically around that, kind of walking you through like, what do I do with this? And what do I do with that? And that really actually helped start to develop the system, if you will, is us working together through, gosh, I don't know. Well, how would we work with someone like this? And how would we work with someone like that? So,
because I had this real belief that it could work on anything, because I just know how I just had discovered how powerful the mind and body is. But then people would come to me with things. I'm like, oh, I think it could, but I have no idea how. So Heather, help. Yeah. But it was such a fun and exciting journey into that whole thing. And if I could share what really propelled me even further.
Absolutely.
I had a good friend who, she's actually an NLP practitioner. We got to know each other. And she, I did some work with her with what I knew, and she was blown away by it. And she just really believed in me. And she was like, you can do this. Like, this is such a need. You really need to make this a practice. And then she put her money where her mouth was. And she called me one day and she said, can you work with my husband? He has really severe whiplash from a car accident. and it's not getting better. He's having to take time off of work. And I was like, sure, we could do whiplash. I'd never done that before, but I just had a belief that I'm sure it's possible. If it's happening inside. I think I, Googled some things and watched some YouTube videos, and I was like, okay. So nervous. I was so nervous driving over to their house. And she was kind of hiding in the kitchen, like listening and watching. And he was very skeptical. He's like, I really don't see how this is going to help my whiplash. But he was willing. So I was like, okay. So we just started working on stuff. And in the beginning, he couldn't really move his arm much at all. And as we were working on stuff, pain was moving down his arm and eventually out of his hand. And by the end, he just had full motion in his arm. And he was Scottish, so he said something like, I'm gobsmacked, or some cute expression like that. And he said, I don't even understand. I'm supposed to go to the physical therapist now. What should I tell them? I was like, tell them what just happened, And so that really propelled me more into a realm of, I need to do this. This is something that people need, and people need to know how powerful their minds and bodies are, and that it just more felt like a calling as opposed to just an interest of mine. Mm-hmm. So at that point, I just took more serious, measures, started to learn about what you guys are putting together, and I was like, oh yeah, we're doing this.
So glad that you did.
Me too.
In the midst of that, and this is what I want to keep reiterating because it's so important, you were still doing the work with you, right? And still am. Yeah, still. We all keep doing that. So what had you seen personally in your life? So not just the victory, I can sleep, but what else? What else were you seeing in your life show up that and make changes in?
Well, the biggest obstacle in making the decision to move abroad was my relationship with my mom and not wanting to leave her. And so that was tricky. And there were elements in our relationship where I thought, oh gosh, I need to heal some things here. And so I worked on that, and it was amazing. So she loves me a lot, and I have the only grandkids. And so that was a big deal for her too. And she was quite upset about the move. And I worked on some things and released some things. And it was literally within the same day that I worked on it where she called me. And she had an interaction where she met some Scottish people in a local store. And she just had a complete change of heart. And she called me and said, I think you should go. And I was like, wow, that's miraculous. A miraculous change. And, so it really, it benefited our relationship tremendously. So just getting to the core of, again, some of that triangulation stuff, the term codependency is huge right now. I think really digging into what was behind that and just releasing and healing some things there. It just...
For you.
For me.
This wasn't... Mom had her own interaction, not doing any of the work and everything. You're doing your work and something in mom changes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we see that all the time. It's amazing.
Yeah. So that's just one. There's so many things. And now when things come up, it's almost like my mind just knows to change and wants to change and does the work pretty fast. And now when things come up, I also feel like, yay, I get to work on something and there'll be something good in it at the end of it.
You have, I'm sure we've talked about this. You have changed so much. Even, I think that's what this work does is we think we're coming in to heal this one thing or do this one thing. But if we stick with it and it becomes more of a mindset and a lifestyle, the sky's the limit, right? With things that we can do and become. And I remember you before just being so much more reserved and quiet and soft-spoken and a little bit, I wouldn't have called you anxious, but I could tell there was always a little bit of a carefulness in making sure you didn't rock the boat or, and what I know now is we were not getting full Cara, full access, because when you speak, when you do talk, when you do have input, it is usually just mind-blowing. It's life-altering. And there was just that reservation before. And now I feel like and it's obviously been years now, but such a more confident, calm peace in your body, in the way you speak, in your life, and your wisdom is just ekes out of you.
Thank you, friend. I appreciate that.
It's amazing. I love this stuff because it's,
Yeah.
you get to see these people just coming back into their highest selves, which you always know is there in somebody. But
yeah.
So that's what propelled you to start being like, okay, I'm going to get serious. And then I believe you were at our first training. Is that? Oh, you came to the weekend
To the
workshop?
weekend, yeah.
Yeah. And then after you got a small taste of like the practitioner side of it, the deeper learning, what then was like, okay, I need to go further into this?
Again, I think it was just that it felt like a calling and a ministry of its own, which is what I was always drawn into. But what I loved about this was I could just help people to have the tools that they need to help themselves. And it's actually I'm not responsible for that, but I can give people the tools so that they can do that for themselves. And it really was so in alignment with everything else I believed. So much so that, again, I felt like, how could I not do this? I felt like that was the momentum of life. I was being like, not pushed into it, but gently led that way, like constantly, that being affirmed. And I just saw it helping so many people. So it sort of felt like, how could I not? And it just brings me so much joy. Like, that when you're passionate about something and you're consuming books and information and you're thinking about, that that's for you, that it's, it just so much resonated with me. And I love the ongoing nature of the learning, that this isn't something that I've arrived at or will ever arrive at. But I can stay in that learning place and just keep adding to the things that I know, and continuing to unlearn what I don't need and what was never true.
That's such a big piece of it.
It is almost like the bulk of it, I think, is unlearning. Because if we can unlearn the stuff that was never for us in the first place, then we can just show up.
Right.
And we already have what we need. So I just need to shed whatever is not in alignment with that.
That is, I have to say personally, that's been a difficult shift because there's nothing else out there like that, where the biggest learning is the unlearning. There's just, we consume and consume and consume so much information. And even, people who are in this field and in the let me help other, we tend to just consume a lot of information so that we can help others. But like you said, a big part of this is just the unlearning, is to take a moment and a break sometimes from all the learning and the input, and then realize what all this learning and input is asking me to unlearn something.
Yeah.
And then going and having the tools to do that.
Yeah. A big thing that helped me with, kind of leveling up, right, getting to that next, and even like you mentioned, being able to show up more myself, was when I realized that I would walk around with a sense of, I'm too much. That was a filter, like, oh, I'm too much. Like, that's why I would hold back so much, because I'm being too much. But then I also had a belief that I'm not enough.
That's a fun place to be.
In the same situation, right. I would ping from, oh, it was probably too much. That was too much, to, oh, but I didn't do that enough. And then I was working on it. I kind of realized, what is this thing you're doing? Why are you sitting here doing this? And I realized that I have these two conflicting beliefs, and I think I laughed out loud. I was like, how could someone be too much and not enough at the same time? That's so silly. Like, obviously, I have to unlearn that. And once I was able to just unlearn that, then I can just show up enough. I can just be me. And it, all that stuff isn't circulating up there.
Yes. So it's one thing that this works for us and we love it. And you've helped hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people now. Just incredible stories. Just all the time, like, Cara this, Cara that. You've helped so many people. What about your own home, your own life? How have you seen the changes in you impact your family?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. So you're familiar with my husband.
Yeah, I am. Love him. Wonderful.
He's been on, yeah. So everyone will be hearing from him. So that was a great story. Just him, obviously no one is more up close and personal than your spouse. And when I came into this work, it was different from other things, because it was the first time where, rather than thinking like, oh, I found something good, how does everyone else need to have it? I was really just able to focus on myself, and I kind of let him just be him, I think. But it was cool to see him start to absorb some of the things, and it would come out I'd hear him in conversations, little words would come out. I'm like, oh, he is listening, he's paying attention. And just over the years, him adopting some of the same practices and the mindset. And then it was, several years into that when then he, I remember he turned to me one day and he was like, I think I'm going to have sessions with Kent. And I was like, you're kidding. He was like, nope, I'm going to do it. And I was floored. Obviously, I'd wanted him to do that, but I was not putting any pressure. But then I think he even said, but I will never do what you do. Just want you to know, like, I'm never going to do that. Like, that's, so don't get that in your head. I was like, okay, sure. So then he had his sessions, and then it was a couple months later, we were talking about New Year's goals. I think we're at an Italian restaurant, what are your New Year's goals? And he said, I think my goal is to do the whole student practitioner thing with Mind Change. I was like, you could have, no. I almost fell off my chair. I was like, you are kidding me. I don't know how that happened in his mind, but it just opened up things for him that I'd always wanted for him, but it was so cool to see that. So he's been doing great on his journey. It's changed the nature of our relationship so much, what we talk about, how we talk. Sometimes it's annoying. Like, I just want to vent. I don't want you to mind change me. I just am mad, and I just want you to absorb it.
Yeah. I'm just going to be the victim, and you did all of this to me.
Yes. Just let me have it. No, but it's great to be able to support each other in that way. And then even our kids. So it's amazing how children, I have a 9-year-old, this stuff is innate for them. They just don't learn it anywhere. But I've just started teaching her simple, like, how to breathe. And seeing her be able to shift out of what would have been a temper tantrum to then her going, Mommy, just help me breathe. I just think I just need to breathe for a little bit. Or can you do that thing where you help me change my mind? It's just so cool that she gets to grow up with that, and learn how to do that. And I have 2 teenagers. I think we're enjoying a relatively peaceful time with teenagers. It's helped me a lot to not need to react and to work on myself. And they're great kids, and they joke around with me about what I do, but I know that they really value it as well. I'm real excited. My daughter's coming to the workshop, the live workshop this weekend, and bringing a friend of hers from school.
Wow.
She's like, Mom, this girl really needs these tools.
Aww.
So it's just so cool that, she's doing that. So yeah, it's just for the whole family. It's been great.
It's the gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah,
right? Yeah,
absolutely. To know the language of your own mind.
Yeah.
It is like learning a language. And what is the value of that? And it's just lifelong.
I think I remember, it would be interesting to go back on my phone. I believe I remember you getting a text from your saying, like, you're not going to believe what I just overheard Paulo say.
Oh.
It was something, and it started, I think I have kind of a text thread, or I don't know if it was emails, I can't remember at this point, where it was like, he said this.
Oh, yeah.
He did this. It was like this blow by blow of he's starting to get it without you pressuring and pushing and everything, just watching all that stuff sort of unfold.
Yeah.
And I do think that that's where this stuff is the greatest testimony. Like, we're not pushing people into things. It's really, we're working on us. And it's so evident that other people start to come in. We're not trying to sell anything or do anything, or, usually, right? But then they eventually come. You know the story. Kent was very resistant too. And now he's helping
not
do
resistant.
All of this. No, not at all. Now he's running the camera that's recording us right now. Yes. So that's such a great story. So tell me, if there is anybody out there, anything else that you would like to say, anything else that you feel like is important for people to know? Like, what's the one thing?
Lately, the word agency has been coming up a lot for me. Just the ability to have agency over your internal world. what is that worth? That's everything. Your perspective is everything. And knowing how to have agency over yourself, your thoughts, your mind, your body. Oh my gosh. Like we pay for that, right? We would give anything for that, rather than really putting our lives in other people's hands, giving over our thoughts and, what we think to others, giving over, our bodies really for other people to fix and figure out. Just the ability to have agency over ourselves is a wonderful gift. And it's worth, that's worth figuring out if it's possible. That's what I thought. If it's possible to have that, then why not? It felt like risky and vulnerable at the time, even though we were friends. Mm-hmm. It's still a scary thing, to sit there and do that. And yet it was the best decision I ever made.
Have you noticed in working with clients, when you get kind of a pattern like that you're seeing with people? I feel like often, I don't know if it's the same for you, oftentimes when I'm hearing a pattern in clients, well, first I look at myself and see if somehow it's something I need to be dealing with. Like, okay, I'm hearing this over and over again. I wonder if there's something, and I just do some of my own reflection and work and see if that's anything that's mine. But I do also think there's sort of a collective that all of us being connected to some degree, that we see that. And the fact that you're bringing up agency, that's definitely been way more in my vocabulary over the last, I think year especially. And I wonder if it's not what we see people fighting for. We talk a lot about freedom out there and oppression, and all these various things are taking the spotlight in one sense, whether it's race or gender or all these different things. And what I hear people crying out for is freedom to be who they really are, and to be okay being who they really are. And I think that's actually what you're speaking to. We just don't have a framework for it out there. We think it's going to be found in this, that, or the other.
Yeah.
Or some political thing needs to give me agency. But it's what you're talking about. It's the ability to actually go in and have some say and mastery over our emotional state, right? Like what we think, what we feel, what we know, what we see, and how we do it on our own. Do you think that speaks to what you're talking about?
Absolutely. And even from the perspective, just our spirit, right? We talk about the mind, the body, the spirit. And I think we were made to have agency. And it's by design. And there's just wonderful ways that our bodies have been designed. Scientists catching up to this all the time. We just haven't learned it. I think the whole, learning about the subconscious, the subconscious controlling 95% of what we do and what motivates us. And yet we have so little room culturally for learning how to work with our own subconscious, or how to teach our kids how to do that. We're just so heavily focused on the logical part of our brains. So for me, it's all, it's discovering who we really are. Instead of, it's not some outside thing that we're trying to put in us. It's actually already there. We just need to connect to it. And it's old. All the stuff that I'm learning about is old stuff.
Yeah.
And there's different components of it packaged in different places. What I love about Mind Change is it's really just trying to bring it all together as much as we can, and as much as we know in one place. But I think that's going to be a forever journey.
Yeah, we keep learning and growing as science expands, and we learn more about even the quantum physics and quantum science. It continues to just open doors for us, and we absorb that information and see where it's relevant, and then work it into the system.
Yeah.
It's been so amazing, I have to say, to have you here on the podcast, but even just a part, you really have helped us build what is now Mind Change. And your personal journey and you working with others and me helping you as you work with others has been a foundation of all of this. So
thank you so much.
To kind of see it start to come full circle is really cool.
Oh, it's amazing. I always say it's one of my favorite things to be a part of. And I feel so honored to, have witnessed everything and to see it begin, at that beginning spot, and to see where it is now has just been a wonderful opportunity and honor for me. So thank you.
Thank you. It's been so great to have you. And I'm sure you'll be back again, because why not?
Why not?
You are full of wisdom.
We should just record our phone conversations.
That's what this started out as. Do you know, you and Mackenzie and I was like, we'd get done with that conversation and be like, did we not
We should have recorded that.
The world needs to hear what we just said. So now the world is getting to hear what we just said.
Yeah.
And more in the future.
Great.
Thank you, my friend.
Thank you so much.
And thank all of you for joining us out there, whether you're watching or you're listening. We do this for you. We have all these conversations on our own, but we do this for you, letting you in on this. And we also want to hear from you. So please go comment, leave a comment with your lovely 5-star review on one of those podcast platforms, or check us out on YouTube and you can comment there. What do you want us to talk about? What do you want to hear? What do you want to know about? We're ready to do that for you. And anything else that you think that would be helpful for us to know, just put it on there. We're open to hearing where you're at with all of that. But thanks again for joining us as we endeavor to change the world one mind at a time.